All right, here we are. If you've been on this new tech journey with me, I'm really hoping I got rid of the tech gremlins. It's looking good so far. It's looking good. All right, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. It doesn't look like I'm muted on my end, so I want to make sure that that's really the case. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I keep saying it because I keep thinking it's Tuesday, but it's not. It is Wednesday. All right. So let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me okay. I just wanted to do a quick crafty chat. One, because I wanted to prove that I got rid of the tech gremlins. If you know, if you know. And two, I miss my art journal. I have not been able to play in my art journal since I finished the 30-day challenge that I put on myself. And I know that there were many, many questions when I shared the videos that I did. So I thought I would do a flip through, right? I don't have time to play in my journal, but I figured I could do a quick flip through with you guys. Let me give you a little bit of back history before I flip the camera. Some of you guys that have been following me, even for a couple years, might not realize that I like to art journal. It's been that long. It has been that long. So I've had in the back of my mind that I wanted to dust off art journaling and really just play in my art journals again. This has been in my mind for quite a while. And I kind of thought I'd be able to do it last spring, but that didn't happen. For those of you guys know, we purchased a new home, we moved, we renovated downstairs for my business. That was a silly dream. But I decided during the holidays, I'm just going to say I'm going to art journal for 30 days. And if I put it out in the world, I'll feel a little bit more pressure and be more apt to follow through, right? If I tell you guys that I'm going to do something, I'm going to stick to it and I'm going to do it. So that's what I did. It wasn't like a New Year's resolution. I think I even took the pressure off of that. And I think I started on January 6th. But I put it out in the world, and part of holding myself accountable is every day I posted a sped up video of me creating my art journal. Now, I know many of you guys that follow me take my online classes or in-person classes, participate in my events, and are very, very used to me teaching you all of the things. And so many of you were like, the videos are too fast. I wish I could see a slowed down version. Do you have a video on YouTube, a process video? And I wasn't really thinking about that. I really just wanted to kind of dust off my art journal skills. It had been a really long time. And part of teaching all of the time is I have to think through what I'm teaching. Are the supplies still available? Is this doable for a wide variety of people with different skill levels? And part of me dusting off my art journals is I didn't want to have to think about all of that, to be quite honest with you guys. So, and the videos had to be so fast because there's a limit to time on Reels, right? So anyways, I do plan to do some mixed media card classes this year. I'm very, very excited about those. Those will be online. I somewhat hoped I'd be able to share details about that before my event next week, Crop on the Cape. I'm kind of feeling like I'm not going to be able to do that because I see my long list of things I need to get done before that event. But details for that will be coming very, very soon. And I can also promise you that I will do some process videos in my art journal right here on YouTube. Again, been working through the tech gremlins, and I'm feeling more confident about filming and editing and posting again with my new camera and new software. I posted a YouTube video yesterday, so I'm getting there, you guys. I'm getting there. So let me go ahead and flip the camera. I'm going to just do a flip through. I'm going to kind of talk through some of the pages. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer those, whether you're watching live or in person, or live or on replay. I don't know why I just said in person. Definitely ask questions. If you're with me live, posting the word question in all caps first really helps when I'm glancing up, so I'll catch those questions. But yeah, this is just meant to be a laid back, fun flip through. And definitely subscribe to my email newsletter so you'll know about any new process videos that I post, and also so that you'll know when I announce the details for my mixed media card classes. Social media does not always show you all of the things you want to see, but being subscribed to my email newsletter is the best way to know that you're getting the information and you're not missing out on anything. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and flip the camera. Here we go. Yay. Look at us. Look at us doing all the things, And guys, look. Wait, I got to put words in. Let me see. Let me find something that has words. I'll just bring in my postcard for Crop on the Cape. Look, it's in focus. Focus, guys. Isn't this great? If you've been around the past couple weeks, you know that this is a huge accomplishment for me. Also, before I flip through my journal, I got to give a little shout out to Olive and June Quick Dry Polish. I polished my nails at 11:35 this morning. So 25 minutes before I went live, I polished my nails. And I went to the bathroom, which if you know, you know. Okay. So the first question that I was getting is what journal was I working in? And part of dusting off my art journal was I just pulled a bunch of supplies that I have been hoarding, right? Hoarding. This is a 6x6 journal. It's through Ranger. It's a Dina Wakley journal. Unfortunately, it's discontinued. Not saying you can't find it anywhere, but it's not readily available. It has been discontinued. It's made of heavyweight watercolor paper, cardstock, and much, much different than distress watercolor cardstock. And Ranger does sell sheets of the paper, which is awesome if you wanted to make your own art journal. Now, I see Brienne just posted a link to the Dina Wakley, the new art journal. So I'm just going to do a little enabling. This is Dina Wakley's new ledger journal. And what they did is Dina purchased an old ledger and they looked up the laws and everything was okay to be able to scan this in and print it on nice heavyweight paper. So if you've ever tried to purchase an old ledger and do mixed media on it, it's a little dicey because the paper is so brittle. But I don't know if you guys can hear that, right? This is really nice paper that takes to water. And I'm showing this, and Brienne just linked, I know Papercraft Clubhouse, which is my local store in Connecticut, has some of these in stock. They are out of stock most places. Ranger is planning to restock. They just don't have a timeline yet. And I'm only sharing this because I just want you guys to know when I pick up art journaling again, which will be in April, because I have an event every weekend in March. This is the journal I'm going to be working in. So Janabler alert. If you want to join along with me, you can use anything that you have. You do not need to have what I have, but this is the journal I'm going to be working in. Okay, so definitely check out Papercraft Clubhouse. They have it in stock. I did see Simon Says Stamp has it in stock, but I would absolutely adore if you supported my local store. Scrappy Chic is in the house, and I know that Dina Wakely is teaching at Scrappy Chic, which is a store in Michigan. Those classes are sold out, but Dina often teaches, not often, like every year, but has frequently taught at Scrappy Chic. In Michigan, she's taught at Papercraft Clubhouse, my local store in Connecticut. Dina teaches everywhere. Now, before I start flipping, I know this is very boring to look at. I don't know if I'm going to do anything to the cover. But before I start flipping, I do have to give a huge shout out to Dina Wakely. I have been taking her classes forever. Like forever, ever, ever. She did, I want to say it was just called Art Journaling 101 100 years ago. Like, I'm trying to think. Chris and I have been together almost 13 years. The store I manage has been closed for almost 14 years. We're talking 18, 20-ish years ago. I took a class online with Dina. And back then, I mean, man, videoing was hard. I don't even remember how she did it, honestly. And then I was lucky enough to take many, many in-person classes with her all over New England. So a lot of the techniques and skills I use are things I've learned from her over the years. And I can't really remember exactly the things. I'll think of them as I'm flipping. But a huge shout out if you can take a class with Dina in person, online, please, please, please do. She's amazing. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but when I opened this journal to start on January 6th, I skipped the first page. I couldn't do it. I was like, nope, I'm just going to skip the first page. I don't know why. It just made it a little bit more approachable to me. And so as a result, this was the first layout that I did. I think out of all the layouts in this book, I dislike this one the most. I know we're not supposed to dislike our art, but I don't like this one. I really don't. I love that it has a little flip, right? I love that. But other than that, I don't love the colors. This is something that I do every time I art journal, and I've talked with Dina about it. I try to get myself out of my comfort zone and use colors I wouldn't normally use so that all my pages are not teal, blues, right? And that's what I was doing here. And as a result, I don't like the results. And in classes before, Dina has said to me, just do what you love. And I'm like, I know, but I'm trying to break out of my comfort zone. And yeah, I'm usually not happy about it. So, but this layout here has a really fun little flip through. This is some sticky canvas tape that Ranger sells, and it takes to paint and stamping really, really well. And so that's what I used to create a little hinge with one of Dina Wakely's tags. This is all Dina Wakely stamps. And this is some ledger paper that Ranger and Dina Wakely have. And what's cool about this is you can just cut it up and break out what sentiments you want, or you could just glue a whole sheet of it on the background of your project, which is super, super cool. So this was my first page. Then we did this one, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to something that is comfortable for me. I love to create with rainbows. I think that they bring a lot of happiness to people. I love the brightness of it. And I also, in this page, there was like no white space really left. So on this page, I was like, I'm going to embrace the white space. And so I squeezed out some distress paints. Those are the paints I primarily used. I haven't unpacked my Dina Wakely paints yet. So I used pretty much the distress paints. But I squeezed out some distress paints on an old room key, a hotel room key. And I literally just swiped and went with it. And I love this layout. So Yuko's asking, where do you get the people from? Where do you get the collage paper? And linked at the top of the chat is a visual supply list. And if you're watching the replay, in the caption of the video is a visual supply list. And anything that I could find that was still available, some of the stamps I used have been discontinued. Some of the stencils I used have been discontinued. But anything that I could find that was still available, I linked in that visual supply list. Okay. And so these are some Dina Wakley alphabet stamps. I love typography. I will buy every alphabet stamp known to man if I'm allowed. And so I'm just playing with different sentiments here. All right. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to just mention, a question I got a lot in all of my videos, and you can still see the videos. I think the easiest way is if you have the Instagram app and you go to my Instagram page and you click Reels, you'll find all the videos there. But one of the questions I got the most was, what white stuff was I putting on my pages before most of the pages? I'll point out the pages I didn't do that. But that was just gesso. And I'm looking around because, oh yeah, here's my jar. I was so happy. I finished a jar of gesso, you guys. Look at this. Look, I don't know. I feel so accomplished. I did not finish this whole jar of gesso in this project, but I was really proud. So if I ever swiped on something white ahead of time, I put gesso on. And if you've ever taken a Dina Wakley class, you'll hear her in the back of your ear telling you that gesso is like putting on your underpants. You can't start the day without putting gesso on. Although, because this is watercolor cardstock, I kind of broke her rule. And there's several pages I put no gesso on ahead of time. But what's nice about putting gesso down is this paint didn't soak into the paper. It stayed up on top. It stayed bright. It stayed vivid. And that's that. Okay. So then I did this spread here. Again, kind of coming back to my blues, playing with, this is some stencils. This is a Dina Wakley stamp set. You can do it. And a technique I did a lot was I used my Distress watercolor pencils directly on the stamps and then stamp them. I love, and I'm going to grab my zoom, I love the texture that gives. I just think it's so yummy. Here we go. Look at that. Like, I just love when you get that imperfect stamping and you get the little, you get some of the pigment of those pencils welling up here and there. I just think it's so, so cool. And so I did that a lot, and people were asking what I was using. And that was my beloved Distress watercolor pencils. Over here, these are some old foam letter stamps from Tim Holtz. I don't know if you can still find them, but I was having fun. And then these little letter stamps, these were wood-mounted stamps from Turtle Press. And when I used to manage a paper crafting store, we used to stock them. They were very expensive. I want to say they were like $40, $45. But the amount of love and joy and use I've gotten out of them over the years, they're well worth it. So I had fun stamping with those. I stamped these, I think, I want to say it was paint, but maybe it was archival ink. I know this was archival ink. And then here's some more of that ledger paper that I just cut up. It was really fun and kind of therapeutic for me to kind of figure out what words I was going to say, and what I was feeling. I just kind of picked whatever sentiment spoke to me first. Now, the other question I got a lot during my videos is how long each of these pages took. And did I have a plan ahead of time? So let me just answer both of those really quickly. Did I have a plan ahead of time? I didn't really have a plan. What I did do though is, let me bring my face camera up again real quick. What I did is, you can see those white bins behind me. Those are all my Tim Holtz and Dina Wakley stamps and Dina Wakley stencils. You can see, whoops, you can see that bin right there. It's busting out. What I did do is I went through those bins and kind of flipped through them, and I just found what inspired me, what was, again, speaking to me that day, what was giving me some ideas. And so I would pull, I don't know, sometimes 3 stamp sets, sometimes 8 stamp sets. I'd pull a few stencils. Then to the left of me is, I have a big Expedit unit, and I have drawers. And in the drawers, I have my Distress spray stains, I have my Distress paints, I have my Dina Wakley gloss sprays, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I'd just pick whichever medium I was going to use, and I'd pick a palette of colors. And then I'd come back here to my desk with all my supplies around me. I work best with a lot of stuff around the sides of me. I just always have. And I just start creating. And sometimes I used everything that I pulled out, and sometimes I only used a few things that I pulled out. Either way, it was really, really fun for me. And then at the end, I would clean it all up, put it all away, so that the next day I would pull different supplies. All right. So that was my thought process. And then about how long did these pages take? It depends. Some took an hour. Some would take like an hour and a half. There was dry time needed in there. One thing that I think I've always been kind of good at, and I had dinner with my friend Melissa the other night for her birthday, and she used to work at the paper crafting store with me, and she loved watching these videos, she was telling me, and she was really inspired by how I just did stuff. I just slapped paint down. I didn't really hesitate. And that's just something I've always been good at. I think that's a strength of mine, because this is an art journal, you guys. This is only really for you. I mean, yes, I shared mine publicly, but this was only for me. I wasn't going to teach it. I didn't care if the supplies were still available. And in general, if you're art journaling, not a lot of people are probably going to see it. And so it's okay if you don't like a page, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because I ended up redoing a whole page. But it's okay if things don't work out well. I think an art journal is a great place to experiment and think about different techniques. And one thing I loved about doing this is I thought of really some fun techniques to teach in my mixed media card classes. Okay. So this layout on the left was my next day. I only just did one page, not a spread this time. And for this one, I was kind of inspired by some abstract art I've been seeing. And so what I did is, this is all distress paint in the background. I just kind of painted out some different colors. These lines were a hotel room key where I dipped it in the paint and just stamped it down. I have some splatters. And then I was brave and I freehanded some lettering. Now, I think most people will tell you they don't love their handwriting. I'm not a big fan of my handwriting, but I would love to get to a place where I do love my handwriting. So the only way I'm going to do that is if I practice and play more, right? So this page I did put gesso down first, all right? And again, let me know if you guys have questions. Hopefully this isn't boring to you. And you can always come back to this video too. I know some of you guys are joining me on your lunch break. So this page here was the first page that I did not put gesso down first. And the difference, and again, this is a heavy, very, very heavy weight It's almost like a chipboard weight, but it's watercolor paper. And Ranger does still sell this in sheets, so you could create your own journal or insert pages into your existing journal, you know, by doing kind of like this technique here where you're using the tape, right? So for this page here, I did not add gesso first, and I used distress spray stains, which are water-based, and I kind of just played with the fluidness of that. I'm trying to remember if I put the paste down first. I think I did. So this is distress texture paste, right? Through a stencil, through a Tim Holtz stencil. And I think I put that down first, let that dry, and then I sprayed with distress spray stains. The pink that you're seeing are the scribble sticks from Dina Wakley. They come in many different sets, but I primarily use the neon colors. I was loving. This is when I was like, ooh, I really love this pink navy combo. And you're going to see this a lot in this journal because I kind of became obsessed with it. Again, trying to embrace my handwriting. I used a Posca pen for this, but the fibers of the watercolor paper and the fiber tip of the pen were not cooperating very well. So I had to go over it a few times. I don't really love how this came out, but I guess I should just embrace what I wrote. Try anything, try everything, right? Question, how long does gesso need to dry before you can work on it? So Dina will tell you that she does not ever heat tool anything. And gesso and many acrylic paints have plastic in them. And then you should let things air dry because you shouldn't heat things with plastic. I am very impatient, and I don't live in Arizona like Tim Holtz and Dina Wakley do. I live in a land of a lot of humidity. So I use my heat tool a lot in this journal. One, because this was a daily process I was doing, but I also still had a lot of other daily tasks I needed to do, and I'm impatient, so I didn't want to wait for things to dry. So how long does gesso need to dry before you can work? That really depends on where you live. You'll know when it's dry. If you touch it, you know, and you don't get any on your hands, it's dry, right? But every place that you live, it's going to have a different dry time. Thank you, Beth. She says, this is not boring at all. It's giving me confidence to be me. I now understand I need to art journal. I love that. Yay. Okay, so Brienne must have went back to look at my reel. Thank you, Miss Brienne, the queen of the live chats. I sprayed some blue, then I paste, and then I sprayed again. Thank you. I don't really remember every process, but super, super fun. So I brought in, I love texture in an art journal. It makes me happy. All right, so then again, 2 separate days here. I had so much fun, and I loved how the distress sprays worked on here without gesso. I did the same exact thing on this page here. No gesso. I just used distress spray stains. And I also love the Tim Holtz Tiny Text stamp sets. He has a general one, he has a holiday one, and he has a Halloween one. This is the general one. I love to just keep it all together, and I inked it up with an archival ink pad, and then I just literally just press the whole stamp on here. And I use it as a big background stamp, which I love to do. I do that a lot in cards that I make as well. This is a stencil. I think it's a Tim Holtz stencil, the X's. And what I used was a little bit of gesso. And I actually was using, let me grab one. I was using the teeny tiny daubers, right? And I was using these a lot to kind of pounce in paints into the stencil. And because this is a foam domed dauber, as soon as I was done, I just took it off and threw it in my cup of water. And that way the paint wouldn't dry in these, and you can reuse them over and over. Okay? All right. This is a Dina Wakley stamp and sentiment. Again, I don't know if they're on the same sets. In the chat at the top, I linked a visual supply list, and in the caption of the video, I linked a visual supply list. So this is Distress watercolor pencils on the stamp, and then I stamped it on some cardstock, and then I colored in here. I think the pink is from the Distress Spray Stains, I believe. And I just kind of watercolored in, and then I watercolored over her lips a little bit, and I added a sentiment. All right. All right, this day, it doesn't look like much, but in the process video, which I don't even want to call it a process video, but in the sped up video, I actually created these backgrounds that I cut the hearts from first. So I used some Distress Mixed Media heavy stock and created these backgrounds. I used some Distress inks. I used some stencils. I did all the things, right? And then I just freehanded and cut out these 3 hearts. And I inked the edges with some probably brown Distress ink. And then I went to town creating the background. So for this background, I did gesso first. I added some Distress paint. And then I really liked how these marks came out with the old hotel room key. So what I did is I did the same exact thing where I dipped the room key into the paint. But what I did, instead of just stamping it down, I pressed and dragged. And that's how I got these really fun teal marks in the background. This is some Tim Holtz stickers and Tim Holtz small talk stickers as well. And so, yeah, so that's that page. All right, so then this page here, I kind of went back to loving this page, okay? Inspired by, again, some abstract art I've been seeing. So I gessoed first. I used Distress paints for the background. These little circles I made just by using a paintbrush and freehanding them, just kind of not always connecting them. I incorporated my handwriting again, trying to like it more, and then again used some small talk stickers from Tim Holtz. I have so many packages of these stickers that I'll be using them until my last day, probably, because I love them so much. All right. So now I'm just kind of playing a little bit more. I really loved, remember I mentioned, I loved the navy neon pink combo. So now I started to really go through my supplies. And again, we moved last year. Quite a bit of my studio supplies are not unpacked yet. But what I did do for this one is I grabbed my Dina Wakley gloss sprays, and I have not played with them at all. I bought them, but I had never played with them. So I really didn't know what to expect. I wasn't really spraying them on this. I was more dripping them. And so for this one, I believe I gessoed. Then I added some, I'm looking, I think that this is gloss spray, this really bright teal. And then the navy that you're seeing, I think, that might be gloss spray too. But I added it to stamps and stamped with it. And that's where you're kind of getting this navy texture over here and the hot pink texture over here. Those were all stamps that I know many of you guys commented that you're nervous about adding paints to your stamps or any mediums to your stamps. And I would just encourage you to do it. Red rubber stamps take to it much better than clear stamps, but you can get clear stamps to work as well. And then I just kind of got a little whimsical. This was really reminding me of ocean and underwater. So I kind of was channeling my mermaid vibes. And I did mermaid dreams, collect beautiful moments. I kind of did some little bubbles and some little scales down here. You're welcome, Kelly. Thanks. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. I really am. Krista says, did you have any prompts or just the vibe and the mood of the day? I did not have any prompts. It really was just the vibe and the mood of the day. I know that's probably scary for some people, but there are so many fun prompts out there that you could use as a stepping stone as well. All right, so then we have this page here on the left, and there's lots of texture to this one. I don't know if that's picking up, but what I did is I used some of the Dina Wakley tissue, I believe. Maybe it was Tim Holtz tissue. This is Dina Wakley tissue. I bet it was the Dina Wakley tissue. And I just kind of let it, I adhered it so it purposely was all like chunky and wrinkled. And then I did use the Distress paste again through that kind of starburst stencil from Tim Holtz. The backgrounds that I created for my hearts, the backgrounds that I created for these, I still had lots of space left. So what I did is I just roughly cut some circles. I inked the edges with a black ink pad. And again, I was using this tiny tool to do that. Just like flip, flip, flip on the edges. I did it as well on the sentiment here that I cut from the Dina Wakley ledger paper. This is some Dina Wakley tissue under here that I purposely didn't paint over. I just wanted it for some texture. And I had all these drippy hot pink drips. This is that Dina Wakley gloss spray. I loved that pink so much. I put some of that gloss spray right on top of these circles fairly thickly. And then I was impatient for it to dry, so I used my heat tool where it did bubble and crack a little bit. But in an art journal, that does not bother me. I like that added bonus texture. Let's see. Susie said, these are all so cool and I'm amazed you can remember what you did for them all. I'm pulling. It's a little tricky because it has been a while since I finished, but I'm trying to remember the most that I can. Aw, thank you, Brianne. You're so sweet, sending me a super chat. I appreciate you. I should be sending you a super chat, helping out in the comments. All right, so this is the page that I created and I didn't love it and I covered it and created it again. So you'll see, one day was this page looking completely different and the next day was me reworking it. What I discovered, and I don't really want to cover a lot of my pages. I don't think you should. Again, I probably never will cover up this first spread that I don't really love. But what I realized when I was first creating this page, I kind of had a better vision of what I wanted it to look like. And that's why I decided on the next day to rework it completely. And the way that I reworked it completely is I used gesso and I went over it. And then that way it kind of gave me a fresh start and I started over. So these are the Dina Wakley gloss sprays that I got into a little bit of a rainbow order. And then I used a Posca pen for all the black that you see. So this is something fun I learned from Dina a million years ago in classes, but I just kind of made these wavy lines. And then you just fill in the space with your letters. And this is a fun thing to do if you don't love your handwriting, because it does give you a little bit of a whimsical look to your handwriting. So you can see I just filled in that full space with the letter. So, you know, a Y might be a lot shorter, but I purposely stretched it out so it touched the top and the bottom line. And that's kind of a fun way to do journaling with your handwriting if you don't love your handwriting. Yeah, texture is the best. I love it. Like, I think I'm going to bring this to Crop on the Cape, which is my in-person event next week, just so people can see it in person, because even the video doesn't do it justice. Okay, so then I went back to doing a full spread, which I have to say, if you're specifically videoing for a reel, which is a vertical video, it's hard to do a horizontal spread, just keeping it on camera. So I did the best that I could. So for this one, what I did is I took some of that Dina Wakley, well, I gessoed first, and then I took some of that Dina Wakley ledger paper, and I actually broke it off into some big chunks and laid it down first. I kind of thought I was going to keep more of the words showing, and that didn't really work out. I don't think that that's what I initially wanted. I did want some of those words to stay visible, but I kind of covered them up. So that's kind of what inspired me stamping this Little Moments Matter stamp over and over and over and over again to make that texture. And that's kind of fun to do, where obviously, you know, explore more. Little moments matter. Doing repetition like this is a fun thing to do. This is Dina Wakley Gloss Sprays. I believe this is her Night, which Dina Wakley Night paint is a beautiful color. It's not black. It's not purple. It's not navy. It's like a mix of all those things. Again, I haven't unpacked my Dina Wakley paints yet, but I was excited that there was the same color in the gloss spray. I'm not surprised because I know the Night color is a favorite of Dina's as well. Explore More, and this white that you're seeing was just gesso. I just used gesso, and I purposely didn't want these letters to stamp perfectly. This is basically what I wanted. So yeah. Libby says, ooh, I need to touch it. All right. Well, Miss Libby, when you're on the Cape next week, you can come touch it. All right. So this page here, I went back to not gessoing, and I used Distress Spray stains without remembering. I know that this is Seedless Preserves. This might be Mermaid Lagoon, maybe. I don't really remember. But then this here, this kind of fun abstract shape was actually a stamp, and I stamped it, and it didn't stamp that great. And so then I just kind of filled in the centers and added a little bit of highlight, again, with Distress paints. This face is a Dina Wakley stamp, as is this sentiment. And so I used my Distress watercolor pencils directly on the stamp. I stamped it onto watercolor cardstock. I added a little color to her lips and her cheek. I kind of fussy cut out this curve shape, and then I purposely tore the rest instead of trying to cut out any of that. And then here, I think what I did is I watercolored the pink background, and then I used the Distress watercolor pencils to stamp out I Was Not Made to Be Subtle. And again, I love, love, love how you never know how it's going to stamp out. I love the way it looks, and it's kind of helps you embrace it, right? All right, and so then this page here is not gessoed, and it is using Distress Spray stains, and I went all rainbow. If I were to guess, I'm guessing this is picked raspberry, spiced marmalade, mustard seed, twisted citron, salvage patina, and I believe this is shaded lilac. So I did eke in some purple in there for you guys. If you know me, when I'm doing a rainbow, I don't often make space for purple. I did here too as well. But I'm a big fan of having more room for teal. But look, purple here as well. I must have been thinking of all my purple loving friends. So for these letters, these are those Dina Wakley alphabet stamps. This set is still available. It's a fairly newer stamp set from her. I used my Distress watercolor pencils, black soot directly on them, and stamped. Now, when I did this, again, I like to embrace how it stamps out, but that doesn't mean you can't go back in with your paintbrush and fill areas in a little bit. And I remember having to do that on some of these letters. I wasn't trying to make them look perfect or anything. I was just trying to make them look a little bit more bold. And so that's what I ended up doing here. So, you know, you can always work with it. I think in the background here is a Tim Holtz. No, I think it's actually a Dina Wakley stencil with letters and some splatters. I'm trying to remember. It's Hickory Smoke, but I'm trying to remember if it was Distress Paint. But I love how that Hickory Smoke, I think it is Distress Paint, reacted with the spray stains in the background. It's almost like they have a little bit of a halo around them. It's really, really cool. Libby said yes to purple eking, and Brienne says we knew you loved us. Yeah, my two biggest purple fans. Let's see. Okay, so then we have this layout here. And I can definitely foresee some of this is going to happen in my Distress Media, my Mixed Media online card class. But what I did for this one is I gessoed first, and then I watered down, I believe, Distress paints, just so that some of that gesso would still shine through. And what's cool about when you gesso and then you paint, you can then take away some of that paint. So I gessoed, I painted, and then I put down this kind of bubble stencil, and I just used my flour sackcloth. A lot of people will use a baby wipe, but I just used my flour sackcloth and buffed through the stencil, and that took the paint away, leaving just the gesso. And that's how we got all those little circles. Similar to how I explained, oh gosh, this one here, where I used Tim Holtz's Tiny Text stamp as a whole background stamp without peeling it apart or anything. What I did here is I used one of Tim's sets that has like all the collage bits. I don't remember which one this specifically is, but I kept it all together. I didn't break apart different images, and I just gently brushed on some paints. And again, it's taking the whole stamp set. Let me just grab a stamp set here. Like, not this one specifically, but I wouldn't take them off of this backer. I would just add some paint, and I literally just take it and press it into my book. And what presses in, presses, and what doesn't. And that's how I got all that yummy little texture back there. I did some splatters. Those are those Dina Wakley alphabet stamps again. I clearly was loving those. I did those with paint directly on the stamps. This is with paint on the stamps, and the butterfly is with paint, Distress paint on the stamps. Super, super fun. So definitely use your stamps. Don't feel like they have to stay pristine and beautiful. And honestly, after I stamp them, I just sprayed them with my Distress sprayer. The power of the spray often will get the paint right out of the little openings, and then I just wiped them with my flour sackcloth, which most of you guys have seen. My flour sackcloths are loved. I have quite a few of them in my reach at all times. So as one gets wet, I move on to another. All right, I love this page. This is one of my favorites, which is no surprise here because of the colors. And so what I did here is I took the Tim Holtz texture paste, and I took my palette knife and I just kind of wiped it down the page. And then I took an old hotel room key and I sliced into it to kind of give those lines that you're seeing. Yeah, I absolutely love this page. I then did try to stamp over here with some distress paint. It didn't really come out, but I still love it. It's all texture, right? Yeah, so I used distress paints on this. I believe it's like Blueprint Sketch, Uncharted Mariner, and Salvage Patina. These letters here are Tim Holtz alphabet that's still available. And I used Uncharted Mariner distress watercolor pencil directly on the stamps and stamped them out. And normally I've been stamping or cutting my letters out in individual blocks. But when I stamped these, I did plan on doing word blocks instead of letter blocks. This here is that stamp that I did in the background here. I think I used actually a Distress Oxide Salvage Patina, stamped out a bunch of little bibbits, and then cut them out and layered them in there just for some added texture. All right, this is another page I love. I really feel like I'm starting to get in my groove. Yeah. This one I did not gesso first. I did Distress Spray Stains, Blueprint Sketch, really, really pretty. And this is a texture stamp from Tim Holtz. I added, I think, Distress watercolor pencils directly to it. I misted it with the Distress sprayer and then stamped it. And I love this yummy watery look that came out from it. I absolutely love it. I probably couldn't recreate it. And that's part of some of the things you do in your art journal, like you won't be able to recreate it, right? This is a Dina Wakley stamp. I used my Distress watercolor pencils directly on it, and then I watercolored in the negative space with Distress watercolor pencils. And once I added it on the page, I really kind of wanted to highlight it more. So I just added a little bit of gesso, very, very thin, so that we could still see the color through here. Once that dried, I tried using the Dina Wakley Scribbly stick, that neon pink. It wasn't as bold as I kind of wanted it to be, but I still like it. I still like how that looks. This is that Dina Wakley ledger paper for that. All right, so this next page, I loved this so much that I decided I would kind of do something similar, but this time I used the translucent texture paste, and that's why it's shiny like that. I don't know if I love it as much as I love this, but that's okay, right? I honestly cannot remember the steps that I took for this page. There's so much going on here. I know that I gessoed it first. Maybe then I put the texture down. I don't know. But I did a lot of, this is a stamp for sure. Looks like I used distress paint on the stamp. But these little bibbits are me just doing them with a paintbrush. This is a Dina Wakley stamp that I stamped out with just archival ink, and I inked the edges. And once I put it down, I did these lines of pink, probably picked raspberry distress paint. And then I just kind of continued on those kind of shapes up the page. These are Tim Holtz little stickers. I can't remember the actual name of them. They come in a package. Him and Paula found all of these little words in different books and stuff, and they made sticker sheets. And this was very therapeutic for me because the sentiments are all over the map, and none of them really say anything. But what I did is I literally just quickly, whatever tugged at my heart in that moment, I just quickly took off a bunch. Like, if you watch the video, you'll see I'm just like pulling a bunch off, like, and then I just stuck them down and added some Distress Collage Medium over them. And of course, some of them got covered up with some paint and things that I did, but I just love that, like, because in the moment, I don't know, it was like therapeutic, like as I was pulling them off, but can I read them now? Not really, but that's okay. It was part of the process, right? Art journaling is for sure the process, not always the end result. I was very inspired and calming to work in my art journal. And so yeah. All right, so then I did this full spread here. This is definitely a technique I learned from Dina. She likes to call it puke on a page, where I did gesso first, and I did a whole bunch of collaging in the background, and then I used her masks. She has these silhouette masks, and I laid them down, and I painted around them with the I think this is Uncharted Mariner distress paint, where you're just now seeing little bits of that puke on a page, and it now looks much more appealing. It's a really, really fun silhouette. Here I used a stencil, and similarly to how I explained this, the little dots here, I didn't do it as quickly, so it wasn't as bold, but I like how it turned out. You just put your stencil down, and you can use a baby wipe, or I just use my flour sackcloth, and I buff off the paint so it's exposing what's underneath. These are those Dina Wakley letters. I stamped them with Wild Honey archival ink. Stamped this as well. I inked the edges. This is a Dina Wakley stamp that I stamped with Villainous Potion. I believe archival ink, and this is a Dina Wakley stamp as well, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and I cut that out. I used a tiny attacher to attach this border to the image, and then I glued it all down. Thank you so much, Sheila. I appreciate it. Krista says, I think I need to do this over the weekend. I'm too structured to be able to unwind and create in just an hour a day. For sure. I get that some people need, I luckily am creative and on a mostly daily basis. So, but I think if you haven't created in a while, you might need some warm up time for sure. And Libby says, that's why I love art journaling, all about the stress release and therapeutic. For sure, Libby. All right, this is another page I absolutely love. I love the colors. I love the pops of neon. I love the texture. I love the sentiment. I love it. I love it. I gessoed first. This is a lot of the Dina Wakley gloss sprays. And I do want to just mention, so I don't know really the backstory on the gloss sprays because I bought them all but had not really used them. And I haven't done a Dina Wakley class in a while. Most certainly not since they came out. Ranger did sell them with a spray bottle, but now they have a dauber top. And I found that I actually really like to use them with the dauber top the most. So you can purchase just dauber tops. Am I saying the right word? Let me grab one bottle to show you guys what they look like. Okay, so these are the gloss sprays, and they've come with a spray top, right? But now they seem to be coming with this dauber top, right? And I really like to work with them with the dauber top. So I, for some of the colors that I had as a spray, you can purchase these dauber tops separately. And so I just took the spray out. I rinsed it. It's good. If I ever want it to be a spray again, I can use that. And I replaced it with the dauber. So a lot of times I'm just squeezing some of this in and dripping it and moving it, or I'm just sticking my paintbrush in and slapping it on. So I just found it was more freeing. And so that's how I enjoyed working with them. Eyedropper. Thank you. Not dauber. I knew dauber wasn't the right term. Eyedropper. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So that's what a lot of this page is. And I had a lot of fun with it. And I really, really love doing this pops of neon. This is, this stencil, I think I used the Distress texture paste through it. I think this is a Tim Holtz stencil. This is a Dina Wakley stamp that I did Distress watercolor pencils. And then We Are Better Together, I stamped. I think We Are Better is a Dina Wakley stamp. And then these are Tim Holtz stamps. Again, I knew I was going to keep it as one word strip. So I really like purposely overlapped the letters and kind of had fun stamping those out. This, so my journal was kind of pulling apart a little bit. So I used some of that that sticky back canvas tape, and just kind of mended my journal. This is a very old Dina Wakley stamp, and, I just kind of stamped them, and they had a little bit of extra rubber on the edging, and that kind of stamped out these lines, but I don't really care. I love how this looks. This is one of my favorites too. And I love this gloss spray, like when it starts to get translucent like this, but then you have these little veins of medium. Oh, it's just so, so yummy. Brienne says, I need to get the eyedroppers. All of my bottles are clogged. Yeah, definitely get the eyedroppers and then clean out your bottles. I bet your sprays will end up working. And Libby is saying Ranger has both the spray nozzle and the eyedropper, so you can buy separately, so you can use whichever you prefer. The spray nozzles just clog a lot if you aren't careful, so that's why they switched. Thank you, Miss Libby. I was out of the loop on that. And then Libby says, I mostly use gloss sprays to flick, or I pour out a little on my glass mat and dip into it. Or I use the drips from the eyedropper like Jen mentioned. Awesome. Yeah, gloss spray is so delicious. I was having so much fun. Okay, now we have this page here. And so what I did on this one is I definitely gessoed. I can tell that I gessoed. It looks like I added some of the gloss sprays in like rainbowy colors. Then I did Distress texture paste through an alphabet stencil. I don't know. I think this is a Tim Holtz one. I also just kind of slapped some texture paste down. Then it looks like I painted over that with Uncharted Mariner Distress paint, I believe. I did some of that, rubbing through a stencil here. And then this is a Dina Wakley stamp set. So I stamped it with Black Soot Distress watercolor pencils. And then I watercolored the little faces with the Dina Wakley neon scribbly sticks. I cut them out. I stapled Rise Above with the Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher. This one could get glued down. I guess I didn't even glue it. But these, I glued everything else down. This one's kind of an interactive, I guess. I'll stick a little collage medium under that later. But yeah, I love this like peaks of color through the dark. I really love how this looks as well. Yummy, 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 yummy. All right, I actually remember this day. I don't remember why, but I was very short on time, but I was like in it, right? I'm doing so good. I'm getting all my days done. So I knew I didn't have a lot of time. So this was a very, very quick page. I do remember that. I gessoed first. This is the Dina Wakley Night Gloss Spray, and I just played with like really watering it out. And really letting a lot of that gesso shine through. And then this is actually a circle stamp. I think it's from a Dina Wakley stamp set that I like Libby was just sharing, she put some gloss spray on her mat. I put some on my table, and I was stamping, using it as an ink pad. And I picked up whatever I picked up and stamped it. And I really love how that looks. I did some drips. Again, this was very similar to what I did back here, where I just quickly chose out some of those little stickers. And again, I just kind of went with what was speaking to me at the time. I mean, come on, that shine and sparkle, that's so Jen Cherkis. And then I stamped out Creative Journey. These are alphabet stamps, wood-mounted alphabet stamps I have, the ones I mentioned at the very beginning. They're from Turtle Press. I've had them in my stash forever and ever. Yeah, I love this. This is like, I want to live within this page. It's pretty magical. So, again, didn't have a whole lot of time, but one of my favorite pages, right? Sometimes you don't need to have hours and hours. You could still just get a little bit of creative play in there. And that was really fun. All right, so now this page here is me trying to branch out of my color comfort zone. I don't know if I love it, but it was still fun. I did not gesso this page. I used Distress Spray Stains. I believe this is Lucky Clover, that really pretty green that Tim has. I stamped this stamp down the side here with just some archival ink. I knew it wasn't going to stamp well, but I did it anyways. This is actually a scripty-like stamp. I think it's a Dina Wakley one. I threw some gesso on it and stamped it across. Totally cannot even tell what it is, but I love the texture that it laid behind. I love just touching my pages because there is a lot of texture to them. This is a Dina Wakley stamp. I use my Distress watercolor pencils to stamp it and then to color it in a little bit. I don't quite know. I think this might have been an archival ink pad that I just stamped it. Do you know what I think I did? I think I used Picked Raspberry Distress watercolor pencil to do it, and it didn't stamp out well. So I inked it with an ink pad and went right over it, which, again, it's a red rubber stamp, so it's pretty hard to line up, but I liked that it didn't line up, so I think that's what I did. And then I cut it into little strips and called it done. All right, I love this page as well. Again, playing with that abstract art that's been inspiring me. So I gessoed first and then played with paints, pretty much like a cool palette. And then I introduced some pink and yellow. Again, this was kind of scraping down a room key and scraping up a room key. I did these little yellow circles, and then the black circles are actually the back of a paintbrush. So I used this part of the paintbrush and I just dipped it into black paint and just dabbed it. I did some black splatters, and then again, embracing my handwriting and adding some word stickers. Let's see. Question. I'm curious how people who do mixed media get over analysis paralysis, or do you not have any? So I might not really, I love that term, analysis paralysis. I don't think I have analysis paralysis. However, because I have taught paper crafting for so many years, I even see you guys do it when we create cards. And I understand cards are different because the end game of a handmade card is you probably are going to put it in the mail and send it to somebody. Again, nobody should ever judge you for that because they should just be so happy to get some happy mail from you. But what I would really encourage you, and hopefully I'll talk more about this as I do some process videos when I get back into art journaling, is this is your art journal, right? I'm sharing my art journal with you. Which is, pretty vulnerable, but this is your art journal. It lives in a book, and it lives within your home, right? I don't think you're going to give anybody your art journal. And you may never share your art journal with anybody, and that is entirely okay. And so hopefully, because nobody else is going to look at it and you can always turn the page, that might help you get over the analysis paralysis, right? Or like I mentioned, you can just cover over the page. I wouldn't make that a habit, but it's also okay to do that. So hopefully that helps, Elizabeth. Yeah, the back of the paintbrush makes great polka dots. I was really enjoying that. Again, I don't have a lot of my art journaling supplies unpacked, so I was using what was nearby. Okay, then we have this page here, or 2 pages. So let's talk about this one here. So if you watch the video, the sped up video for this one, I had a couple people tell me they liked it better before I continued working it. What happened here is I gessoed my page. I put some of that Dina Wakley collage tissue down, which I love. And then I did some of the texture paste. That's that Raise stencil from Tim Holtz. And then I used distress spray stains in similar colors to what you're seeing here, but it wasn't drying. Because of the gesso, because of the everything, it was not drying. Maybe it would have dried eventually, but again, I'm very impatient. And even with a heat tool, it was not drying. I decided to scrap it, and I think I then gessoed again, and then I added distress paint. So I had a couple of people like comment and message me, well, I liked it better before you, I read it as I liked it better before you ruined it. But the reason why I continued to work it is because it wasn't drying. And so again, that's part of the experimenting. I have an idea of what things are going to work together, but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, right? And so you just kind of have to keep playing. But I love how this looks now. This is a new stamp set from Dina Wakley from her last release. So the second I got it, I had to play with it. I stamped the moon and then watercolored in with distress watercolor pencils, kind of mimicking the blues into the yellows. These are the Tim Holtz alphabet stamps. I stamped those with distress watercolor pencils. There's some splattering. The gold splattering you're seeing is the Gansai Tombi Starry Colors palette. This is Hickory Smoke down here, distress paint. I like how it looks. Did I love it more when it was the distress spray stains? Yes, it was definitely more vivid and bright, but again, it just wasn't drying. So I just kept working with it. Let's see for comments. Brienne says, my art journal pages are basically like a diary. It's how I get my feelings out. It doesn't really need to look a certain way. Exactly. And Libby says, me too. A lot of my pages are me arting it out. I agree. Thank you, Libby. Thank you for the sweet comments. Okay, so then we have this page here. I gessoed first. This is a Tim Holtz, I think it's like a long strip stamp that he has like multiple things, multiple textures that are long strips. So this was lines, and I added some Hickory Smoke distress paint to it, and I stamped it multiple times down the page. This is a Tim Holtz stamp, as well as this sentiment. I can't remember if they're from the same set, but I just stamped those with black soot archival, and I tore along the bottom and the top. And then I used distress paints to kind of add paint to the paintbrushes. And then I did some drips down the page. I love this. And I added some splatters up here in rainbow. And then these are the Tim Holtz small talk stickers. I always end up cutting them up into different things. So yeah, I love this. And I'm proud of myself for keeping white space. I don't often keep a lot of white space. And that's Dina in my ear as well from the classes I've taken with her, is like, embrace the white space. I have a really, really hard time doing that. All right, and then we have this spread, and this also was this one took me a long time, because not only did I do the background, but I also did all these tags. And so the tags are that similar technique that I learned from Dina Wakley years ago, puke on a page, which is similar to this, where I did some very quick texture in the background. I actually laid these tags out almost like it was a sheet of paper. So I was stamping on two things at once. I was stenciling on two things at once. So there's lots of stamping back here. There's stamping with distress watercolor pencils. I think there's oxides. I stenciled with gesso. And then these are little masks from Dina Wakley, silhouette masks. And I put them over there and I painted around the masks. I then used a Posca pen to just kind of give a rough outline around those little people. I honestly don't remember exactly what I did in the background here, but you're not seeing a ton of it. It was kind of covered up by the tags. And then I used some little small talk stickers from Tim. Colleen says, I wish I was as brave as you. I can't get over my fear of multiple mediums on one page or project. That is hard, and it is hard. Again, even if you got an art journal, like maybe you have two art journals going, one art journal can be one where you're recreating a technique that you loved the outcome. And your other art journal can be the one where it's just experimenting. And you probably are going to tell yourself, I'm never going to like anything in that art journal. But whatever I find that works out successfully in that experimenting art journal, you could rework and replay with in your other art journal. Does that make sense? But really, an art journal is just for you. It's not a scrapbook that you're going to have people look at years to come. It's not a card. It is literally just for you. And the fact that I'm sharing mine, that's not normal, right? You don't have to ever share your art journal. All right, then we have our last spread, although it's not my last. I'll talk about it in just a minute. I had a lot of fun with this one as well. I kind of think maybe I was feeling like, oh gosh, it's the last day. I got to do all the things on my last spread. So for this one, I definitely gessoed. I used some, I think that I used, I'm trying to remember what I put through the stencil. It's not Distress Texture Paste. It's almost like a clear gesso, but I can't remember. I can't remember what I put through the stencil. I'm forgetting. I could look back at the video and maybe see, but it's probably very quick. So I put something through the stencil, and then I used the Dina Wakley gloss sprays and had a lot of fun with those. This I stamped with Distress watercolor pencils, and then I watercolored in with Distress watercolor pencils. Then I used the Stabilo pencil. It's this right here. I actually couldn't find mine, and I was itching to have them on other layouts, so I actually ordered more from Papercraft Clubhouse. But what this is a pencil that I scribbled around her, so it almost looks like I drew it, although I will never draw this. And then when you add a wet paintbrush to it, it waters out. Like it's like a watercolor pencil, but what's nice about these is they work on a lot of different mediums. They don't break down. Again, I got mine at Papercraft Clubhouse. There are several colors too. So while I was having them shipped to me, I decided to get all the colors. So they're all right here in my cup. But And then all of these little bibbits are from Tim Holtz stamp sets that I use distress watercolor pencils on them and stamp them out, and then just kind of collaged them back there. Now, when you watch this video, I stamped out another word first, and I don't know, I wasn't feeling that sentiment, that quote that I was going to do. So I used some gesso and I covered over that original word. And then I stamped out the word stronger. And so I did life does not get easier, you get stronger. And then I used some of that hot pink distress, not distress, that hot pink Dina Wakley gloss spray to just kind of highlight that quote. And then there's some splatters back there as well. Yeah, Libby says the Stabilo pencils are a must-have. I agree. Colleen likes the idea of having 2 art journals at once. And Libby says also you don't have to commit to a journal. You could try things on paper and put them in the trash if you don't love them. Some ideas, same ideas on a different format. I think that's a great idea, Libby. I would encourage you, instead of trashing any of those pieces of paper, keep them, because you could use those as art fodder. You could rip them up, stamp over them, paint over them. What kind of doesn't look great to you that day, months later, might work into another project that you're working into. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks so much for popping in. And Brian says, I tried to see what you used in the video, but I couldn't tell. It was the consistency of like conditioner. Yeah, maybe it was a distress medium. Maybe it was the translucent distress texture paste for here. I bet that's what it was, the translucent. But anyways, so I finished this up and I was so sad because my 30 days were up. And then I was getting lots of comments from you guys as I was approaching the 30 days, how sad you were that these days were going to end. And I was feeling it as well. And then I remembered that I skipped the first pages. So I was like, yay, I could do a bonus page. I was so excited. So that's when I did this layout here. I did not gesso it. I used distress spray stains in the background. And honestly, when I first did this, if you watch the video, it kind of looked like Easter threw up on my page. I was not loving it. It was very pastel-y and bright. So that's when I brought in, I don't know, this might be Uncharted Mariner, but I do believe that what I used on this one here and here is the distress texture, but the translucent, not the opaque, which is what I used almost throughout the whole book. So I did some stenciling, and what's cool about that is it preserved the colors underneath. And then I went over with this darker color. So that's how you're getting to see these pops of color, which I really love. Excuse me. This is a Dina Wakley stencil, all these letters, these words. And I just used the tiny dauber right here with an archival ink. And I just added some of that. This is a Dina Wakley stamp that I stamped, and then I used that Stabilo pencil and added water. And then this is a sentiment of hers. I am a voice, not an echo. And that, my friends, is 31 days of art journaling. And just flipping through this again has made me so happy. So going forward, as I've been mentioning, I have a really busy month ahead. I have a in-person event next week with over 300 people that attend, Crop on the Cape. I'm hosting that. Then I'm teaching at Crop and Create, which is an online event, but it still takes up a lot of fun time. Then I fly up to Canada, and I'm teaching in Markham at the Scrapbooking Cards Today Create and Inspire event. Then I'm flying down to Minnesota and I'm teaching at Firefly Farm. All of the stuff that I'm teaching is Lawn Fawn card classes. So it's going to be well into April until I'm going to be able to art journal again. As I mentioned, this is going to be the journal that I use next. This is the new Dina Wakley Ledger Journal. It's scanned in ledger pages of actual ledger, which I think is really fun because you already have something on the page. So it's not as fearful to put something on the page because you're not staring at a blank page. I think that can be tricky sometimes too. So I'm really excited to play in this. This is Dina's new journal. It is sold out in a lot of places, but I did mention at the beginning of my video, Papercraft Clubhouse is a store in Connecticut. They have an online store. They ship very quickly. She has some of these journals in stock. I checked with Scrappy Chic. They are out of stock. Ranger's out of stock. I think Simon Says Stamp has some in stock. So if you're Janabled and maybe you do want to art journal along with me, I'm not going to do another 30 days, but I am going to do more consistent art journaling when I get back from my world tour. That's not really a world tour. Oh my gosh. Let's see. I'm just making sure I don't miss any questions. Yes, I am going to bring my little art journal with me to Crop on the Cape. I'm going to actually bring it right downstairs and put it with the piles of stuff that are going to go in the U-Haul so I don't forget it. Let's see. All the stamped images are stamped on paper, cut, and put in the album. Most of the main focal point ones. Thank you so much, Miss Libby. I'm glad you love that I fill my pages. I know Dina's really good at leaving white space. I'm pleasantly happy when I leave white space, but I get carried away. Sheila says it's not meant as a coffee table book. I love that. She says I sometimes brain dump on the page or the pages and then gesso collage and paint over. I love that. I think that's great. And Libby says, yes, good point about fodder. Yeah, keep all your bits and pieces for sure. Yay. Thank you guys so much. Libby says, I have a full journal that I filled over years. I'm in awe that you did this in a month. Well, I put it out there that I was going to do it, and I'm pretty competitive. I like to do what I say. So the challenge definitely helped me. Yeah, I checked with Ranger when another shipment of journals is going to come, and they don't have an exact date yet, but soon. But for now, you can get one if you're watching this live or watching it soon-ish. As I said, Papercraft Clubhouse has them in stock. Brienne just linked it in the chat, and I do think Simon Says Stamp has it in stock, so keep that in mind. And yeah, so that is it, you guys. Again, I've never really done a live like this, but I thought this was a fun way to do a little crafty chat, a little flip through. I think it's more fun to be with you guys live than pre-filming it. So in the future, again, after March, I really hope to work in my new art journal. Definitely look, I will plan on filming some of it and doing some process videos for you guys so that they're not so fast like they were in the reels that I shared. And then I also have plans so soon to be doing some mixed media card classes. And I do think, even though we're going to be making cards, so some of you are going to put some pressure on yourself that they have to be perfect, I do think having that smaller palette will be helpful to learn some techniques that you can then incorporate in your journals. Excuse me. Let's see. Yay! Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Those of you that joined me live, I appreciate you. And if you're watching the replay, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll be happy to answer anything. Please make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really am hoping to give it a lot more love this year, and I don't want you to miss out on anything that I will be sharing. Have a fabulous rest of your day, and I'll chat with you guys soon. Bye.